Everyone, welcome to Moo's Crew. Moo here, and today we're looking at the War for Cybertron map and its completion. Now, we wouldn't be doing this video today if it weren't for Necro Diamond leaving a comment on my Thrust video requesting, hey, when's this coming out? And you know what? I really appreciate you reaching out and asking about it, so I thought, you know what? I'll drop everything I'm working on. Let's just get it going. So the map is complete, and I have a lot of problems with it, and it's not just me. There are several of the people that are having the same problem. So let's break it down. Something you'll notice is that there's little blue dotted lines all around each piece. And I did that intentionally in case I had to make some alterations and I would need to cut in further. I'd rather have too much sticking out than too little. And we'll discuss this more later. And from here you can tell these little decoder things help, it blocks out all other light except for red light. And it really shows up a lot more of the decals that it's covering up, right? So what we're having to do here is go kind of decode, in quotes, each of these different paths, because each of these different paths are the different vehicles. You have the space bridge and transportation method. So using these little decoders, it filters out everything else and lets you easily see the different paths that take. Something I noticed is that most of this is space bridge. Most of this entire map isn't actually relevant to the story that they were supposed to be hinting at. Oh, you can decode and find information about what's going to happen on their trip through Cybertron. No, only a few of them, like the Nemesis and the Quintessons, and the Fool's Fortune actually has the most diverse path out of all of them. Let's take a look at the entire map. So this is the map minus one little bitty piece from a Battlemaster pack, and I just can't find it. I lost it. So this portion of the video, I was really wanting to do some Adobe After Effects with animated trails showing off everything, but I think I'll save that for the fourth and final video, and we'll talk about the last video and why there needs to be one at the end of this one. But since this is part 3, not the final one, I'll do some more research while we're waiting on the content to come in. Essentially some things I'm needing to finish the final and fourth video. But first thing I'm going to show you is all the space bridges, and like I mentioned earlier, most of the red lines that you see interconnecting these is just space bridges, and so on and so on. So all of these space bridges that are red, these are all the interconnecting lines that are specifically the space bridge lines. What's interesting about this is that there's space bridge travel between all these locations. So does that mean there's receiving gates on all of them? I'm not versed enough in space bridge travel, so I don't think there needs to be. I'm pretty sure space bridges can just kind of pop you out anywhere. But the way these are written out, they're like roads. So I feel like either these are the random jump points that are possible, or these are different areas with established bridges from into different planets, right? There's still a lot of different lines, and some lines that are space bridges that are not highlighted because they're errors. They don't actually connect anything. There's no pieces to connect for these. So it feels kind of pointless to do that. Now, for the other path, we have the Nemesis, the Ark, and then you have the Quintessons, and the Fool's Fortune, which is the mercenaries, of course. And the Ark is the orange one, as you can see here. That one actually has some of the fewest amount of travel that is done. I thought that Nemesis had less, but I think they're almost equal, I guess. But as you can see, the Fool's Fortune, they come out from way off the map. There's not another map peeps up there. I'm not missing anything. There just isn't one up there. So it starts from way up there. They wind around, eventually land on Char. They leave Char and get to Nebulon Station, and they pass through the space bridge, or not space bridge, excuse me, the dead zone entrance, and then they come out the dead zone on their way to Earth at the top. So and with the Ark is kind of not shown anywhere. More than likely what happened is when they space bridge out, they space bridge near Char. So they come out of Char and they kind of fly around, and then the path for them just disappears. And then at the very bottom, they're at the Quintesson location, where they arrive on Quintessa at the bottom. And then you have the Fool's Fortune, which goes to Char 2. So I think what's really happening is that the Ark arrives at Char and makes its way eventually to the Nebulon station. They're just missing the path to it. And that the Quintessons make their way from Quintessa to Char. I think like Char is a big hotspot between all of it, right? Except the Decepticons, they don't show up there. They actually take the Nemesis from Cybertron in the middle, where that big blue line starts, and makes their way to the Nebulon station. And then you have the Fool's Fortune, the Ark, and the Nemesis all going through that dead zone or dead universe entrance, and then they all come out and they all go to Earth. So it's interesting to me that the Quintessons, their path stops at Char, and what we know in the TV show at least is that there was only one Odysseus, I believe is his name, one Quintesson left, and I just don't feel like this matches up with the show. It doesn't even match up with itself, really. As you can see, that green line split, that's not me just like, oh, I don't know how to use Photoshop to draw a line. That's actually mismatched in it. We can take a look at that later, but there was a lot of errors in this map. Like, there's 2 Junkions in 2 different places. Like, just the words, not the actual planet, right? It's crazy that I guess somebody wasn't paying attention and hit print or hit save and export with these extra layers on that went to nowhere. And it's kind of sad that there's so much effort put into this for them to drop the ball like that. It's just disappointing. Fair quality version of the map, right? This is a Photoshop version to kind of bring out the dark colors. That's why you can see it a lot better than you could earlier. So let's take a look at like the nice version of this map. Here we go. And so this version of the map, and once again, this is a space bridge. This is from the Galaxy Collection. Unfortunately, it's an Amazon exclusive. And I believe this particular image came from the lid of the box. So this has, you know, the map without all of its errors and in its entirety. The only problem is that box isn't that huge, and it isn't anywhere near as big as the actual, you know, map that you can make yourself using all these pieces. So it feels like a halfway apology. Like, sure, they could have gave us the whole map properly the first time, but they chose not to, and that's disappointing. I'm hoping one day that they will release, like, here, buy a poster or something like that, or buy a tapestry with this map on it for like $20-30 or whatever, but I doubt they will at this point. Now here we are looking at the nice map with the paths, and it's a little bit clearer, and it's easier to see that it wasn't a fault of my assembly or other people's assembly that the Quintessa line to Char what didn't line up, and several of the other ones. It was simply an error with the maps and the layers that they made with this software. I'm pretty sure they used Photoshop, and I'm pretty sure someone left a layer on that they shouldn't have. Oh well, right? But here it is what it is, and it's just a little bit disappointing. And finally, you know what? As a nice little bonus, I thought I'd just throw everything up there at the same time, so you can see like how crazy this map is and how deceiving it can be when you're trying to look at it without using those little red decoders to see which map is which, right? Or which line is which, giving the illusion that the map and the journey is way more complex on first, you know, appearance. So yeah, I originally thought it would be like, oh, there's space bridging from this location to this location to this location. But once I got Cybertron, the planet in the middle with the Nemesis coming from it, that is just kind of like, oh, well, no, these are just space bridges that exist. They're nothing specific beyond that. You could argue with the Galaxy Collection that this is the potential pathways. They traveled from Micron to Botropolis, etc. But that's something to discuss in the future. And that's it. That's the map. I'd like to know what you think. Were you happy with the outcome of the map? Did you collect all the pieces? Was it worth it? Did you buy figures that you didn't want? I know there's some figures that I didn't want. The clones were one of them. I ended up liking them, but I wouldn't have bought them if it weren't for that. I'd like to thank the people that helped me get some of the maps pieces. For a while there, I wasn't sure we'd get any Wave 2. And I wasn't about to buy Astro Train twice because I didn't care for Astro Train the first time around. He warmed up on me a little bit, but I still feel like he was lacking, and his shuttle mode is but ugly. But anyways, overall with this toy line, I was impressed with the articulation. And oh yeah, Megatron. If it weren't for doing my Megatron comparison video, by the way, look out for that if you want to see all of the Megatrons that have been released so far compared in detail. Subscribe. It's going to be similar to my Optimus Prime comparison video, so be sure to check that out in the future. Feel free to stay for the rest of the video where I'm going to more rant, recovering some of the things I already talked about, but it's just kind of unfiltered and just me talking about how I felt about this and like some of the tasks, and I'll be pointing out like the path and directions. Also, I'll be doing an After Effects version of this in part 4. Alright, thanks again for watching. Y'all take care. Peace. The bad things, the pieces not being mismatched, I will take some of that blame, even though I stayed on the outside of the border, so theoretically I can work with it and like trim it down somewhere to make it fit exactly. But the problem is, with Unicron and sorry, that's the Unicron piece, but that came from Scorponaut, and Skylink's pieces, those were pre-cut. There was no cutting to be done. They don't match up perfectly. And I believe also same for Ramjet and Dirge and Thundercracker and Skywarp. Yeah, all of those were pre-cut, and you would think they fit together like a puzzle, but they don't. They don't fit in like a puzzle at all. And there's different thicknesses between the boards, so some are like this, some are like paper thin, and some are like cardboard thin. That's because they weren't consistent with the material they used for the map. I don't understand why the cutting process for the ones that were pre-cut for you do not match perfectly, other than the fact that they just didn't cut it initially or do the measurements right the first time. So, oh well. Let's move on beyond that now. So the majority of the lines that you see here are just space bridges. Teleportation from one point to another point to another point. They're interlocking in different bridges that go to different planets. The actual amount, journey that is taken from Cybertron to Earth over here is nowhere near as intense as you would think from this map. So you got the Fool's Fortune. They start over here, and then they go Fool's Fortune. Ooh. And to here, yeah. So that's the trick from Fool's Fortune. It goes from over here in space with no planet. You would think there's more pieces. There aren't any more pieces. EarthRise is done. The map, this is the entire map, and this is the correct formation because this map was the layout that was shared by Facebook, by Transformers on Facebook. So this is it. Errors and all. We're not getting another one unless we decide to print one for us. So you have the Nemesis, which travels from Cybertron to Nebulon Station to the Dead Universe. We'll get to that Dead Universe later. Now the Ark is different and strange. The Ark, there is no path of it leaving the Ark from here. So I'm assuming there's a ground bridge that's taken to Char, and from Char, they take and go this way, but it doesn't really show that path connecting to here. So what actually happens? It's a good question. The Ark is shown to be down here and connecting to the Quintesson or Quintessa, and from Quintessa the Ark doesn't go anywhere. So from Quintessa the Ark doesn't go anywhere. The Nemesis, oh sorry, not the Nemesis, this weird path right here that's disjointed and goes right here, that's just the Quintessons. You can see how that doesn't align, right? And like some of that planetary effect or this from Quintessa just isn't matched. And it's sad that they didn't take enough care to make sure everything worked properly in line and had the correct Photoshop layers when they decided to send it to print. So Quintessa, they go to Char. The Autobot Arc, they go to Char. Doesn't really tell you how they get from Quintessa or from Char to the Dead Universe or Nebulon Station. Maybe ground bridge. But there's no ground bridges actually connecting from here to Nebulon Station except up to Gigatron or something like that. At the top right. So we have the Nemesis, we have the Arc that got here either by means of Char or ground bridging from Quintessa. Then you have the Fool's Fortune, who from here somehow get here. Once again, maybe some sort of ground bridging method. And from the Dead Universe entry point, they all come out the Dead Universe up here. And they all leave the Dead Universe and head to Earth. Except for, the Quintessons, their trip ends on Char. But yeah, all the other ones, the Nemesis, the Arc, the Fool's Fortune, all go to Earth over here. That's just right there. All this other stuff, just ground bridges. And it feels a little bit insulting, right? Like, hey, like this intriguing map and use the decoder piece and find out what's going on. It feels kind of like a waste of time, which is a shame. It really is. Alright, well, I hope this has been informative. I'll have some layovers and stuff. Thank you again for watching Moose Crew. Moo here, and you all take care. Be safe. It's good to hear from you all.